Maybe some of you can remember when the Roman Catholic Bishop Fulton Sheen was one of television's brightest stars. Well, I missed that, but you hear a lot about it. You know, it really amazes me that when Sheen gave his weekly televised talks, he won 2 Emmy Awards for being the most outstanding television personality. He was on the cover of Time magazine. He received, as you would guess, thousands of letters. And one of those letters was from a mom who wrote about having her son underfoot, just kind of trying to help but getting in the way. And so she finally said, go to the parlor. You know, back then they still had parlors. Go to the parlor and turn on the TV and watch Bishop Sheen. He's a really smart guy and you'll learn something. And so he went in, turned on the TV, and so he just got the beginning of the show, and Bishop Sheen wrote sex across the bulletin board. That was going to be his topic for the night, and sooner little boy comes in and says, Mom, I don't think Bishop Sheen's that smart at all. He doesn't even know how to spell 6. You're right, children will keep you on your toes. Well, a woman wrote, not to Bishop Sheen, but Reader's Digest, and told about an incident involving one of her 5 children. Well, she had just finished tucking them all into bed when her 3-year-old Billy began to wail. He was scared. He'd accidentally swallowed a penny. And he was, obviously thinking he was going to get some kind of metal poisoning, from that copper penny down there inside him. Maybe he just couldn't go to sleep. Well, there was nothing Mom could say that would console him, so Dad palmed a penny. And so he goes into Billy's room and he pulls it out of his ear. And before Dad can say anything, Billy grabs the penny, pops it in his mouth, and says, do it again! Oh yeah, kids really keep you on your toes. But if you pay attention to them, there's a lot that you can learn from children. You may have heard, there are a lot of stories told about Albert Einstein, but one is about his neighbors. Mother had a 10-year-old daughter, and she noticed that the child would often go and visit Einstein's home. And the mother wondered about this. What are they talking about? Is she talking about the theory of relativity or something? And so, curiosity got the best of her, and she asked. And the child explained, well, I was having trouble with my homework. And the arithmetic was really hard. And people said that in number 112, there lived a very big mathematician. And he was a very good man. So I asked him to help me. And he was very willing, and he explained everything so well. And he said, if I ever had a problem I'm stuck with, that I can come visit whenever I wanted. So he did. Well, this kind of alarmed Mom. She was thinking, oh my goodness, this is kind of embarrassing. And so the girl's mom went to Einstein's to apologize. And Einstein said, "You don't have to excuse yourself. I've learned more from our conversations with your daughter than she has from me." You know, Einstein's a bright guy. Jesus would have understood what Dr. Einstein was saying. Jesus and his disciples, we pick up our gospel lesson, they're traveling through Galilee. They return to Capernaum, and when they got settled in from the journey, Jesus asked, "Hey, what were you talking about on the road?" And they're all silent. They're looking at their sandals. They're not. Well, we were talking about who was the greatest. Oh my. And Jesus sat them down as if they were little children. And he called his disciples, gather around him. And then he said, "Anyone who wants to be first," Jesus said to his disciples, "must be the very last and the servant of all." And then, as if he's going to drive in the point further, Jesus gave his disciples an object lesson. He took a child and placed the child among them, and taking the child into his arms, he said, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me doesn't just welcome me, but the one who sent me." Well, I'm thankful that this passage is in the New Testament. It reminds us that Jesus held children in high regard. And that's interesting because that is not the prevailing thought in the ancient Israel. Children were considered to be part of the lowest elements in society. Children, along with women, old men, slaves, they were all perceived as physically weak, burdens on society that had little value to the wider community. Well, in Greece and Rome, they had an even harsher outlook, and other cultures have as well. It was acceptable practice if a child was just too much to keep fed, they had too much trouble, you could take the child and leave them on the side of the road to die. Yeah, it was. And we think, really, no way. But that makes Jesus' attitude towards children even more counter-cultural. And he warned his followers not to despise children, not to cause them to stumble. And this isn't the only place in scriptures where Jesus lifts up children. He enjoyed the presence of children. Remember that wonderful scene where Jesus is teaching and the disciples think they're doing their job, they're keeping the kids away, so the grown-ups can hear the important good news. And Jesus said, he didn't want any of that. Remember, Jesus said in the King James Version, it's "suffer the little children to come to me." And we put suffering together and we think, oh yeah, remember when I was a kid and I sat through those worship services that were just directed to the adults and not to the little kids? Or I got that Sunday school teacher who just was all about the Bible and not about relating to kids, and oh my goodness, what a drag. No, that's not the suffer that we mean here. It's a more modern translation would say, let the children come unto me. That's more accurate. That's what Jesus was talking about. And Jesus even elevated children higher when he said, truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. And so we've just got Mark, Matthew, and Luke covered. So. And while it may be true that maybe you know that you're a parent or grandparent by which Disney songs you know all the words to, you can probably guess when somebody had kids or grandkids by the songs they still know all the words to. But, children teach us way better stuff than that. Let me just suggest a few things. For one thing, we would know so much less about unrestrained joy if it wasn't for children. You ever watch kids playing? Have you done that lately? Oh, Carolyn has. They're just having fun. And people have studied this. We study everything, right? and they count the number of times kids laugh during the day. Kids laugh 400 times a day. Sometimes that's a little bit too much exuberance, and you think, calm down a bit here. Well, if you're an adult, man, are you laughing 400 times a day? If you're an average adult, you know how many times you're laughing a day? 17. 417. And maybe we have something that we have lost. Roger Nishioka is a professor of Christian education at Columbia Seminary, and he had something to say on the subject when he returned from a trip to Africa. He was speaking to his students, these students who are going to one day be pastors, and he said, hey, don't you ever get upset by a child crying in church. And he went on to explain. He said one Sunday on his trip, he'd been in a rural, remote villages. They didn't even have a church building, just open air worship. And everybody was coming to be baptized. So it's leading worship, big multitude, adults, lots and lots of kids. And partway through the service, Roger noticed the only thing he could hear was the buzzing of flies. All these people, bunches of kids, and it's quiet. And that doesn't happen in the United States. Well, they get to the part where, everybody's coming up to be baptized, and he's looking the children in the eyes. Oh, vacant eyes. What's keeping them quiet? Sickness and hunger. Every time you hear a child laugh, give thanks to God. And don't allow your responsibilities to rob you of the gift of laughter. Because, when you're growing up and you take responsibilities on your shoulders, life gets stressful. The psalmist wrote about this kind of happiness that we find that when we're going to be laughing. Talks about happiness of a tree growing along the banks of a stream. And we can picture that. The person who is happy, tickled pink to be perched on the riverbank and being what he or she is supposed to be. Happy are those. Well, it's well understood that God didn't put us on earth just to make us happy, right? Jesus didn't die on the cross just to make us happy. Our purpose, our goals are to do something meaningful with our lives. And surely it is more than just our own pleasure. But that said, there's certainly something wrong with a believer who's not happy, with a believer who's unhappy. It just doesn't make sense. A Christian who goes through a purity of life, it's unhappy that's hitting some challenging times. Well, we can understand that. When you're a little bit out of sync, dysfunctional, life is an upheaval. But, you get through that. God gets you through that. You don't live the rest of your life as a Christian and be unhappy. We all understand life is stressful. We need children or grandchildren to remind us of what unrestrained joy is all about. Children also teach us about unrestrained love. Most of us have encountered love, this kind of love at some point in our lives, and it's brought us undescribable joy. Joshua was a toddler. He was not even walking when my sister died. And there were some days I was just sad. And he would come up and I would hold him and I would just feel that no boundaries love that only little kids seem to have. And I'd be okay. You know what I'm talking about. Children know how to express love in the most beautiful ways. Their love moves beyond the boundaries that we adults put on our love. For example, they don't reserve love for people who are just like them. Business writer Ann Kridner talks about a friend who found her 3.5-year-old just looking at these wooden figures that were in a box and putting them out and arranging them. It was a long table, and Jesus and the disciples at the Last Supper. And she asked him what he was thinking about, and the 3.5-year-old looked at her and said, you know, if Jesus had a party for his friend, he'd invite the whole world. It's true. Sometimes children understand the heart of Jesus better than us adults. Because we haven't taught them. Adults have not taught them to hate yet. Kids don't come with that ability. As a young seminary student, man, I was so optimistic. I thought that, racism was just about being pushed off the face of the earth. That, man, we were marching on towards the kingdom of God. And then I had some friends from the South tell me about the coloring books and the comic books that the KKK gives to kids in the South. And I'm like, teaching them how to hate people with different colored skin. And I thought, no. Maybe if we're going to learn from children, we got to unlearn some stuff. We have to. We need to listen to children because they understand, and that's the point that Jesus is trying to get across. Children can teach us about unrestrained joy. Children can teach us about unrestrained love, and most of all, about unrestrained faith. Author and business consultant Ken Blanchard tells a wonderful story about a little girl, Shia, and it's a story you might have heard. When Shia was 4 years old, they brought a baby brother home. And here's a little 4-year-old that she asked, Mom and Dad, I'll take care of him by myself. You just leave him with me. And Blanchard said, well, little Shia began making this request, and the parents were thinking, well, she's a 4-year-old, and what if she is wanting to do something bad, hit or shake the baby? So they said, no. But given time, they could see that Shia wasn't showing any signs of jealousy. And she kept asking. And so they changed their minds, and they decided to let Shia have some time just alone with her baby brother. And so she goes into his room, and she closes the door. But, she doesn't close it real well, and it kind of pops open a little bit. Mom and Dad are so curious. Why does she want this time with her brother so bad? And so they sit and listen by the door. And Shia comes up to the crib and gets her head right down next to her baby brother's. And she says, baby, tell me what God is like. I'm beginning to forget. Beautiful story, but it reminds us that faith is the basic natural state of little children, babies. Do you want to be that well-watered tree sitting in the riverbank? Do you, as James teaches, want to show your good life by works of gentleness born of wisdom? Well, maybe. Maybe you need to listen to children a little more. Maybe you remember, get back a little bit of that unrestrained joy, some of that unrestrained love. And get that unrestrained faith. There's no other